righty, folks. I think we can go ahead and get started. Emily is going to kind of help us keep an eye on the waiting room and let folks in as they come. I'm going to do my best to monitor the chat and acknowledge folks if you've got your hand raised or something like that. Just my usual shameless plug, friendly request, if you are able to turn your camera on. Love seeing faces smiling back at me. So appreciate that. Also, totally understand if you are not able. So we can go ahead and get started. My name, for those of you that don't know, my name is Neil Johnston. I serve as the Director of Accelerator Programs here at the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute. I'm sure that you all are here to learn a little bit more about some of the basics and a bit of an overview about our upcoming Be Your Own Boss Bowl. And so that's what we're here to do. Apologies in advance. You are going to hear my voice a lot tonight. I'm going to need to take some water breaks. I'm going to try and pick a few spots where hopefully it can be interactive and get some feedback from you all, either having you come off mute and speak up or type your answers in the chat. But there is just a lot of content to go through with this presentation. I will say we've got your emails and everything all captured, and so we will send a copy of the presentation out to folks afterwards to reference, but as well as the link to the Zoom recording. But again, just wanted to give the heads up that I'm going to be talking a lot tonight, so this is not our usual kind of interactive back and forth. Let's just go over kind of quickly what the Be Your Own Boss Bowl is. This is kind of our flagship pitch competition, as well as a series of workshops that provides funding and service prizes, so in-kind donations to folks that are launching high potential new ventures. As always, with all of the things that we do here at the IAI, we are open to all Temple faculty, staff, students, and alum from all 17 schools and colleges. So just like to throw that out there. And just again, a kind of quick overview. If you haven't joined Startup Tree, that is our digital platform that we use to run pretty much all of our events, including the Be Your Own Boss Bowl. So like I said, this presentation will be sent out afterwards, but if you wanted to scan the QR code now, if you haven't set up an account in Startup Tree, I would encourage you to do so. Not only will you need to in order to be able to enter the competition, but it's a great way to collaborate, to meet co-founders, meet other entrepreneurs. It's another way to get connected with mentors, and we've got a message board that we're trying to revitalize a little bit on there as well. The Be Your Own Boss Bowl is set up on Startup Tree such that you can go back and save your progress. And so you do not have to sit down all at once and submit everything. You are welcome to create a draft and save it. Please just note that it is, we do have a hard deadline, and I'll go over those dates in just a little bit. So just be sure that you get things in before the deadline. The other getting started tip that I wanted to emphasize is we feel like we have done a really good job, not to toot our own horns, but we feel like we've done a good job of compiling a bunch of resources for you all to use. And so chances are, if you've got a question, you can find it in the Google shared resource folder. And again, that can be linked in this QR code here, as well as it's on the Startup Tree portal. So we've got previous video recordings, we've got templates that you can use, we've got all of our eligibility guidelines, the scoring rubric that the judges will be using, so you know exactly kind of what they are looking at and how they are scoring this competition. So really encourage folks to spend some time with that. I see a couple of things in the chat. Let me just pull that up. Oh, it's just Emily linking to these things, being awesome as always. Thanks, Emily. The other piece that I mentioned a little bit about Startup Tree, but you are able to get matched with a mentor, to reach out to a mentor. And so you can see we have it circled on the upright, or I'm sorry, the top banner here in Startup Tree. You just click on mentor and you can kind of see a little bios and information about all the mentors that we have available. If you have any questions about any of this, more than happy to set up an individual meeting and we can, like I said, hop on Zoom, or you can stop by the IEI and you and I can kind of go over what mentor matching looks like. Sorry, I just lost my cursor for a second. So Some upcoming workshops that we have in our series. Next week, we are back on our regular schedule of Wednesdays. Wanted to take yesterday off because it's Valentine's Day and knew that a lot of folks may have had other plans for the evening. So we're back on Wednesdays starting again next week, looking at market opportunity and the competitive landscape. We will then take a little bit of a break because we've got the Changemaker Challenge, our other pitch competition, coming up the week after that. And then it's spring break week, so we'll rejoin on March 13th to talk about financial projections. And then the final kind of content session is March 20th, that is all about pitching. The other key dates that I wanted to go through, the Entrepreneurial Student Association is hosting, like they usually do, peer mentoring with them. So again, just kind of getting a peer set of eyes on that. That is on March 13th. We've got an expert mentoring night where we have some of our past judges, past reviewers that have stepped into the role of mentor that are happy to look at your presentations and things like that. Would encourage folks to have their presentations and submissions in a really good place before coming to that, because the submission deadline is 2 days after that, March 27th at 11:59 p.m. So that expert mentoring night is really not a place where you can come and say, well, here's kind of what I'm thinking about, or here's like kind of this rough idea. No, you should really be, you know, kind of at the final stages and just wanting some expert eyes to look it over. Our finalists are announced on April 12th after we let folks go through the first round of judging. And then we do have pitch coaching the week of April 15th. And then April 24th is the live pitch event that will be both in person in the 1810 Accelerator as well as live streamed. And again, all these dates can be found on the Startup Tree portal. So just to share, again, most of you probably know this, but the cash and in-kind service prizes that we have total over $100,000 in value. There are 2 tracks that folks need to know about. So one is for our undergraduate students, and the other is for our graduate students and faculty, staff, and alumni. So within both of those tracks, there is a first and second place prize as well as a grand prize. I'm not sure why that bullet point is on there, but the in-kind service packages that are awarded are for legal, accounting, marketing, design, web hosting, all kinds of services that companies have donated to us. And so in addition to the cash prizes, this is what folks are eligible for. I'm sorry. I know why that second bullet point is on there. It used to be called Startup Studio. We are still settling on a name, but it is going to be a requirement that winners participate in a series of workshops and mentor meetings after the fact before they are awarded the prize. We just want to make sure that folks know how they're going to be spending the money and that we are, you know, setting people up for success as best we can for kind of the next stage in their business venture. So that's what that IEI Accelerator second bullet point is about. There is a crowd favorite award that will be around $1,000. We also have some sponsored awards, including the Digital Innovation Award, the Global Award, and then the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. And you can see the sponsors of those awards in the parentheses there. So multiple opportunities to win. Again, want to go over eligibility real quick. The leader of your team must have a Temple University affiliation. And so if you are somebody on this screen that does not have a direct Temple University affiliation, would encourage you to find somebody that does so that you can submit and that person can be the leader. This can be for a new business that does not exist or an existing business. It needs to be less than 5 years old, and it has not raised more than $50,000 from external institutional sources. And you need to have gross sales of less than $100,000. If you feel like there are like some gray areas or things that you've got questions about, more than happy to answer those questions either now or offline separately. And unlike some of our other competitions, this must be a for-profit business. Cross-discipline teams are highly encouraged, right? Folks from the School of Engineering or College of Liberal Arts teaming up with a business school student or someone from the College of Public Health, right? Love seeing that cross-collaboration, and that's definitely encouraged. Any questions about eligibility guidelines? Cross, seeing some shaking heads. Okay, great. The submission requirements. So These need to be tied to real world requirements from accelerators as well as investors. And so what that means is that we are looking for an investor style pitch deck. So if you were to go to an investor venture forum, or if you were to go to an angel investor and be presenting this idea, that is the type of pitch deck style that we are looking for. I'll go into a little bit about what that looks like throughout the course of this presentation, but that is one of the biggest pieces that we are looking for in this. We also need to have an executive summary that should be between 1 and 2 pages, and then a 3-year financial projection or income statement. So if you are already an existing business, that is probably the easiest one to kind of put together, because you should already have that. But if you are a new business, right, that might be where you need some help. And again, we can share some resources about where to find said help. So that goes over a little bit about the BYOBB, just to kind of catch everybody up to speed. Any questions before we kind of really dive into the meat of this presentation? I'm going to pause.
Neil, I have a question.
Yes, go, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is about the financial requirements. The financial statement requirements, excuse me. So I think it said the first, 2 years, it needs to be monthly. And the first year needs to be shown monthly, and then the next 2 quarterly.
Correct.
So my question is, for like 2024, is 2024 the year, or since we're pitching in March, it's March to March? Like,
I don't think we are as concerned about it. And again, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think we just want to make sure that, right, we're asking for a 3-year financial projection. And if your go-to-market strategy isn't until 2025, right, we want to see, hey, what are you doing in that first year, a little bit more broken up, and then the next 2 years is just kind of overall, if that makes sense. So kind of whatever your timeline is.
Yeah, I just want to jump in that it is not January to December. It's whatever your fiscal year is, whether it's March to end of February, or like the academic year. What is it, July to June? 12 months, and then the quarterly.
Does that help, Stephanie?
So I can include like 2 months of actuals, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Great. Any other questions? Wonderful. Okay. So here are our goals for tonight. I'm going to provide an overview of the topics and things that must be considered in your presentation. Then I'm going to share some tips about how to structure your submission, as well as how to think about, how you want to lay things out. And then finally, just some quick tips for completing your submission. 1 and 2 are going to take up the bulk of our time. And again, just to kind of public service is not the right word, but just consider that this is my perspective. This is a presentation that we've used in the past. And so there's obviously more than one way to do well and to be successful in this competition. So please take these tips and things with as many grains of salt as you would like, right? This is how we have thought that you can be successful, but there are some reviewers or judges that might see things differently. And so getting a second opinion, we are totally open to that. But this is not like a hard and fast, if you don't do things this way, you will not be successful, right? We've had lots of people be successful in lots of different ways and lots of different submissions over the years. All right, so let's dive right in. So think to yourself and maybe just type in the chat, which of these paths are you on for your idea that you were thinking about for the BYOBB? Is this a lifestyle or family business? By that, we mean, this is kind of how you were going to support your lifestyle or your family. Not something that is scalable. You're not really looking for a ton of outside investment. There's not really an exit plan. This is something that you are bootstrapped to, that you are, thinking about really doing. Or is this something that is scalable, that you need capital for, that there is going to be an exit strategy, and this is something that is an investable business? Which of those two do folks kind of fall into? And let's do lifestyle and family business as one, and the second bullet point, highly scalable, is number 2. So you can just type either of those in the chat. Not sure yet. That's totally fine. We're seeing some highly scalable. Okay, there's a 1, there's a 2. Okay, great. So just things to be thinking about. All right, lots of folks highly scalable. I think, yeah, that's fine too. So yeah, there are lots of different ways to think about this. Sorry, I got to find my cursor again. So what do you think as you are kind of thinking about, again, these two different styles or different paths that you are on? Who should you be targeting with your pitch? And what topics should be included in your pitch? I just like to throw that out there. This will be the first time where I take a break and ask for folks to either type in the chat or come off mute. You don't have to like share your idea or anything like that, but who should you be targeting and what sorts of topics should you be including in your pitch? Great, thanks, Marissa. So the target for Marissa is those in need of her services. Wonderful.
My targets are new moms.
Okay.
And what topic that, essentially addressing the need for the solution and why, current solutions do not help her.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thanks, Linda. Anything else? Give it a second to see if anything comes through in the chat. Okay. So one of the things to think about, yes, Sarita, am I saying that right? Targeting potential investors and topics that are relevant to them. That is definitely a key demographic that folks can be thinking about. So one is to think about an investor or bank pitch. And what this is it's a 7-minute presentation, so just close up the chat, with an investor focus. It grabs attention early and keeps it by hitting and re-hitting the highlights. And the most important thing, at least in my mind, is that it leaves the investor eager to know more. And so if you're thinking about this pitch in terms of pitching to an investor, these are some things to think about. It is not a technology presentation or a sales presentation. And it is definitely not an opportunity to get into the weeds. I know that, especially for some of our folks that are thinking about things that are more hard science or, kind of really technical, that can be a bit of a challenge, right? Because you want to get in there and you want to show, by getting into the weeds, why your product is different or why the specific issue that you are trying to address or solve can be tackled by your solution. That is great, and that is definitely something that you are going to want to consider at some point down the line. But for the purposes of the BYOBB submissions, that is not really something that we are looking for. Does that all make sense? Seeing some nods. Okay, great. It is important, like one of the bullet points said earlier, to make an impact with your message. I really like this graphic because this person that's up on stage talking in the blue text, has what they say, and then the audience and the projector kind of talks about what they see. And this overlap in the purple here really are the things that you want to be sure to highlight that they should be walking away with. You're going to say a lot more than what is shown on the screen, and that's okay. That's going to add some context. That's going to add some nuance to the things. But you really want to be sure that you're making an impact with your message by highlighting both what you say and what you see on the screen with just a little bit here. You don't want to, again, I don't think I need to tell all of you this, but feel like I just should for the sake of clarity, right? Having, 17 bullet points and then reading off the bullet points on the presentation, not really helpful for what we're looking for in this. So make sure that what you are saying is kind of complementing what you are putting up on the screen. Great, Shrita, God, I said your name correctly. And then, are these tips recommended for the Changemaker Challenge too? They are, I would say some of them are recommended for the Changemaker Challenge. Feel free to send me an email and we can go over that a little bit more. The Be Your Own Boss Bowl gets a little bit more in-depth than the Changemaker does. And the kind of makeup of the judges and all that is a little different. So Emily, if you wouldn't mind just typing my email in the chat so that we can send me an email and then we can set something up. But thanks, great question. I will say that when you make your initial submission to the Be Your Own Gospel through Startup Tree, the first, that's what we're calling the first round, that can be more text heavy because all that is going to the reviewers is a PDF of your PowerPoint presentation. So they will see your slides, and we have specific instructions there about seeing, about making sure that we see your notes too, so that if there is context, you can add it. Some folks choose to submit a short video. That is not a requirement, but I will say that that short video is not just you going through your presentation. It should be additive to your presentation. So the first round that you are submitting, again, through Startup Tree can be a little bit more text heavy, but it must still include your script. And then once we get to the actual presentation, if you are named a finalist, then we can rework the slides a little bit because they are going to have to change slightly just kind of based on the format. Does that make sense? I'm seeing some nods. Okay, great. Just check the chat and make sure. Great, thank you, Emily. So this is what we have found that investors want to know. First step is, what is the problem? The second step is, what is your solution? And most importantly, how are you different than what else exists out there? One of the things that we always like to tell folks is, again, for the Be Your Own Gospel, not necessarily super relevant because folks are a little bit more on their game. But for our earlier competitions, right? Hey, you've got a problem that you're trying to address. Google that problem and see what comes up, right? There might already be 17,000 solutions that are already out there and you just haven't heard of them, but they may already exist. The next piece that investors want to know is, why are you and your team, why are you there to solve the problem? What drew you to this problem? Linda talked earlier about, the target market being moms. Why is new moms? Why is your group kind of the best people to tackle this issue that is super relevant to new moms? And then probably the most important thing that investors want to know, because they are investors, is, when will you make me money? So by investing in this, I'm taking a bit of a risk by sharing that I do want to go into business with you and support you and back you. But I am hoping that as an investor, there's going to be an exit strategy, or there's going to be a point where I'm going to start making some money back. Lost my cursor. There it is. I'm going to pause right here and let folks just kind of look this over. The 10 points in terms of feasibility, viability, and desirability for this rollout pitch plan. So just take a minute to look at this, and then I'll ask for some reflections in a minute here. Give it like 15 more seconds. We can open the chat up and just ask any reflections, reactions, thoughts about this. Do things seem to be in the right order? Are there things that you would think about differently? Again, this is just kind of one example or one kind of layout, but what are folks' reaction to all this?
So, hi, Stephanie here. I think it makes a lot of sense. It kind of goes in line with the executive summary and the prompts that are provided for that too. Not exactly, obviously, but can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused for the value prop as compared to the solution. Where's the differentiator in that?
That is a great question. And folks, feel free to, if you've got alternative thoughts, but the alternative solution to me is more kind of that first step, right? There are an earlier step than the value proposition. The alternative solution is, hey, I've done my research. I know that this is a problem. Here are the ways that it's being addressed currently. Here is where my alternative solution, what I am offering to investors the solution that I am offering. Here's why it's different. Here's why, you know, I am uniquely positioned to be able to address this. Here's why this, and we'll talk about intellectual property in a second, but here's how this intellectual property is different from what is out there. That is what the alternative solution is. And then the value proposition is, okay, we've got this alternative solution. This is why I think it's going to work. The value proposition is, and there's this untapped market that we are not, that is not being addressed. And that's where there can be a ton of value added as an investor. So not only, you know, so there can be, I'm trying to think of an example. So there can be a problem that is out there that you have a unique solution to, but there's no value there, right? Because there are so many other, you know, I am just another water bottle manufacturing company, right? Stanley is big right now. Everybody wants a Stanley. Stanleys are huge. And so I'm going to, you know, make the next Stanley and call it a Neely, right? And it's going to be important because it's my name and I really like my name. Okay, yeah, that's different and all that, but the value proposition there is just kind of banking on that there's going to be a clamor for this, and unless I show that there's, you know, this untapped market, or there's this, you know, windfall to be made, then it doesn't really make sense for me as an investor to put my time, effort, and money into your company. Does that make sense? Great. Other reactions to this? The rollout plan? Great, that's fine. Oh, wonderful. Thought it was a good explanation.
I had a question, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not well today. I'm sick today.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Marissa.
I got my finger. Oh, no, it's okay. Like, I'm assuming I'm new to all this, so I don't know how to do a market analysis. I don't know if there's specific sites you can point me to.
For sure. We will, I think you may have joined a little bit late, but there's a resource folder that we are linked to on an earlier slide that has lots of information about that. I would also share that there are tons of mentors within the Startup Tree platform that would be able to link you to that. And blanking on what the third one is that I just had in my mind. It'll come to me in a second. But yes, there are opportunities, and we have compiled some resources as to how you can find all that stuff out. Oh my gosh, Emily's on top of it, and she's sharing the link again in the chat. Okay, great. Let's move on. So sorry, I have to close the chat again so I can see everything. So again, this is one of those times where, again, this is our suggested flow, but your product, your solution, your idea that you are pitching may require a different flow, right? It might be more important for you to kind of end with the market size and opportunity just based on, you know, what you've seen. Maybe your management team, your like leadership team is really important because that really ties into the problem and the opportunity. This is just one way that we have seen be successful. Again, feel free to work some things around. I will say that the 12 kind of boxes that we have on here are things that we have found, again, in the past to be really successful to include. And so really thinking about finding some way to incorporate most, if not all of these is going to be really important. So this is just a snapshot of a sample of the executive summary. Again, this is one of the requirements for your submission in the BYOBB. It covers all the elements, especially the essential elements of the business plan. You need to make sure to include all of them. And again, we have examples of that on the Google folder resources. Sorry, the Google folder that's full with resources. And just know that it does not have to follow, again, just like this previous slide where you don't have to follow title, slide, problem, opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to follow that flow. You do not have to follow grab, opportunity, problem, product, service, management team. Again, as long as all of that is in there and you have found a way to kind of make it your own, that's good enough. Again, it doesn't need to, you're not just cutting and pasting your responses or kind of what is salient to you and your business in here. Does that make sense? Seeing some nods. Okay, great.
So does it not, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Asking my questions.
Yeah.
Until you stop me, Neil.
I will never stop you, Stephanie.
So, so like even those titles, like it's not like if I wanted to just do one long paragraph, maybe that's not the right answer, but essentially that's fine.
As
do these
long as it
titles-
is, I would say you are welcome to do that. I think that for our reviewers that we are asking them to volunteer their time, making it as easy as possible for them to kind of grab your concept. And if you can do that in a paragraph and your skills as a writer are such that that works, great, do that. We have just found, right, again, people volunteering their time and maybe looking at this late at night after putting kids to bed or whatever, just kind of really bullet pointing it out or you know, title and then short description, next title, description, all that is useful and helpful for them. So that, again, they can come back and revisit it before giving a score. All that is helpful. But again, if you feel like you tell your story best in a paragraph form, go for it.
And then for the financials, like then we can like insert a table then, right?
Yep.
For that part of the executive summary. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And I'm seeing Emily nod too, which always makes me feel better. So there are 3 submission requirements for your financial state. Sorry, I should go back. Any other questions about the executive summary? And again, there are great examples in that Google folder that you can look at from the past. All right, so let's talk about the submission requirements for the financial statements. We do need to have a 3-year income statement detailed, including assumptions. And so if you are assuming that, right, maybe you entered a competition or you applied for a grant, saying that, I am assuming that I am getting this grant from the FDA or whatever, and that is included in this financial, just making a note of that is important to us. There does need to be a financial slide in the pitch deck, as submitted in both the initial submission and then as well as in the live pitch event presentation as well. And then the financial section in the executive summary. And again, you can see summarizing the key points from the 3-year income statement and the pitch slide, revenue model, financial resources that you have, cost to launch, and then any other major assumptions. So again, all of these things you can see spelled out in previous examples in that Google folder, but it's important. We wanted to be sure to highlight this because the financials, I feel like, is where people tend to have either the most questions or, can get tripped up on the most. And again, you'll see on the rubric as well that it goes through like point by point. Are these things included in the financial statement? And that's what the reviewers are looking at. Questions about this? Let me check the chat. I don't know where the chat went.
Actually, I had a question. So
yeah,
we're just you are the investor. So we are talking to you as if you are the investor, not that we're trying to capture. Okay.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's the kind of way that we have laid it out to be able to for folks to think about as they are creating this. Great question. All right, find my cursor again. Okay. So like I said, here is just, again, a screenshot of some of the resources that are in that Google shared folder. You see samples, you see templates, you see expenses, you see this PDF is really great, the Practical Guide to Financial Modeling. Marissa, I think that was one of the things that maybe you were asking. I will highlight, and I think this is on the next slide, if I remember correctly, yes, the read me first. Before you dive into this, please read this first. We try and make it as easy as possible by having it say, read me first. So just read me first. But here's again, just a screenshot of it. You can go and read it on your own time, but it's just really important to us that you kind of know what you're getting into. And again, going back to that, that timeline, and we'll share this a little bit as we get to the third kind of section of this presentation. Really important to be doing stuff ahead of time and not kind of waiting until the last minute.
Okay, I had another question. Sorry.
Yep.
All right. So we're pitching this to you as if you're an investor.
Yeah.
So that's why you want us to put down what our financial needs are, because
Correct.
that's what I'm going to ask of you, even though I'm going to need more than what your contest could potentially.
Correct.
Should I just speak as if I'm just going to give whatever money you give me, kind of scale it down to what you're
I mean, so we obviously can't give $1 million, and if you need $1 million, we can't provide all of that. But it is helpful to know, right? Hey, I need $1 million eventually, but the $30,000, the 20,000, the $10,000 that I hope to win from this contest will help me get to this stage, so that I can then go on to raise more capital and get to my $1 million goal mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, awesome. And then so we should we then we are going to pitch that, okay, I need $20,000 and this in 1 year I'll give you your $20,000 back. Is that kind of what you want us to say, or?
We'll talk a little bit about exit strategy in a little bit, but if that applies to you, then yes. I mean, there are, again, there are different types of investors, right? There are some of those folks that want to, I'm going to lend you $20,000 and within a year, I want you to have turned that into $50,000. You keep 25 for yourself and give me 25 back so that I've made $5,000. There are others that are like, no, I see the value in this and I want to be in this for the long haul. And so I'm going to give you $30,000 and you come back to me in 5 years and I hope that you've doubled that, right? And so it really just kind of depends what you are asking for and kind of what the business model that you are kind of operating off of speaks to.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So thinking about the customer and the problem. So again, these can be some self-reflective questions for you. If you want to throw them in the chat, if you want to pull yourself off of mute. But thinking about your submission or the idea that you have right now, who is the user or who is the customer? What is their problem? And then why do you know, or sorry, that should say, what do you know about this problem? Like, why are you uniquely positioned to solve this problem? If folks feel like answering, that's great. If not, this can really just be kind of a reflective slide to maybe jot some stuff down. So I'll pause for another 20 seconds or so and give myself another break to get a drink of water.
Sarita here. So what if you have multiple customer segments? Is it recommended to just focus on the one that is most profitable, or to demonstrate your knowledge and awareness of all of the customer segments that are going to benefit or be engaged with your business at some point?
That's a great question. So I think the answer to your question is a little bit of both, but maybe more leaning towards your first kind of assumption, right? The folks that are going to most benefit from it and the folks that are going to be most invested in it, that's where you want to spend the majority of your time. I also think it is really helpful and really useful, if you have this small segment of the population that is going to really benefit from your idea, that's great to highlight. I think it's also safe to say, like, my target is this population for now because that's where my expertise is and all that. However, once I get up and running, I feel like in 2.5 years, I will be able to expand it to people in other parts of the country or another demographic of people because I will have learned from this section, subsect of the population. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's see something in the chat. Yep, love that question. Great. All right, we can move on. And then just again, sharing that, as you're thinking about kind of your pitch style and your kind of the way that you present, how you introduce this definitely sets the tone. If you are doing something that is really technical and maybe you do need to get a little bit into the weeds in order to kind of explain what it is, making it emotional and appeal and connection is a really great way to kind of hook people in so that they can hopefully pay, some close attention as you do delve into the weeds a little bit. So I know I shared earlier, this shouldn't be a very technical presentation, and that emotional appeal and connection is a great way to kind of start off. So the product, service, and description, again, contradicting myself a little bit, but you do not need to get in the weeds. This is not a technical presentation, but you do need to briefly explain your product or your service. Talk about why and how it solves the defined problem. And I really want to emphasize that defined problem, just kind of this amorphous, generalized problem is not really something that investors are interested in. Having something really defined and specific is something that they can latch onto. Again, we've talked about this before, but how are you uniquely qualified or different in order to be able to tackle this? And then any diagrams, photos, and videos that you can provide are going to be helpful. I will say, if you are going to use videos specifically, please use them sparingly, right? We want to hear from you. And so if you're up there giving, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a 10-minute pitch. Is that what they get for the live event?
You get a 7-minute pitch and then a 3-minute Q&A.
Okay.
So total 10 minutes that you have. Whether you go over, under, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah. So if you've got only 7 minutes to deliver your content and you're showing, even a 1-minute video, right? That's a huge chunk of your time that is kind of being, I don't want to use the word wasted, but it's kind of being wasted, right? Because then we're not getting to know you and hear your story. So, and all that, and videos, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but can be submitted ahead of time for the judges to view. Is that correct?
We actually highly request that, just so the judges can get a better idea of what they're judging, and so they can come to the live event with questions to ask you.
Perfect. Great.
And what would be an example of a video, like what video of a service or?
Yeah, and so again, thinking about some things that have been done in the past. Again, if you've got something that's like highly technical, if you want to do, if you have like a mock-up animation of how, your invention kind of helps solve, I'm trying to think of something, food scarcity, or helps, water scarcity in the desert, right? How does your technology do that? Doing a little animation so that people can see what that looks like can be really helpful, in addition to kind of explaining it from yourself. I see the thumbs up, so glad that explanation got through. Other questions about the product or service description?
Neil, this is Linda.
Hey.
So if we're in the, so my company is in the MVP development phase.
Yeah.
Obviously that is a very discovery, exploratory kind of environment.
Sure.
How definitive, can I call that out that I'm in that discovery phase, or do I need to, assume that I know what my MVP and final product looks like?
Yeah, I think investors, and again, we're asking the judges in this competition to kind of act as investors. Being as honest with them as you can, I think, is important. And so if you are in that phase, right, share that you are in that phase, but where you hope, to be. I think that's probably the best strategy there. And again, maybe talking about I forget where it was, but talking about how maybe eventually down the line you'll be a little bit more specified, or you will have been able to hone in. But it is because of the funding that I've received that's going to allow me to do that. I think that's a totally fair thing to say in your presentation.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Do I need a real working product or service? The short answer is no, but if you do have one, we would love to see it. At the Innovative Idea Competition this past fall, we had some folks that had, I can't remember exactly what their pitch was, but it was something to do with healthy snacks in terms of pH levels for folks that have that kind of food sensitivity. And they brought some of those snacks, right, for the judges to kind of sample. That was, again, a really kind of impactful part of their presentation. And so if you've got a real product version, bring it. If you've got a prototype, great. Somebody brought something that they made in kind of a 3D printer very quickly. That was a quick mock-up of it. Drawings, all that sort of stuff is helpful. If you are not validated, the kind of rule of thumb that we are saying is don't build it. But think about either the product or the problem and kind of how your issue or idea is a fit to kind of fix those things. How does it solve the problem? How does it work? And then again, what is your competitive advantage, right? This is a great time in the presentation when talking about the product or service to speak on your competitive advantage in the market. a minimum viable product. And so this is just kind of an example that we like to share. We'll go through a couple of examples in these next few slides. Why build something that nobody wants is a great question to ask. Again, hopefully, as you are thinking about this, you have found or discovered or tested to know that this is something that people will want to use. The great example that we like to give here is Dropbox, right? It launched using just a landing page that was a test concept and really kind of drew people's interest. 75,000 people responded and signed up as subscribers even before any code had been written at that point. And so that really shows, right, as Dropbox was going around kind of selling their idea, they were able to say, hey, we've written not a single line of code yet, but we already have, close to 100,000 people that are interested and that want to be subscribers. The goal there being, will people pay for this? And are there pre-sales or, again, in the case of Dropbox, subscribers that have already signed up even without the product being launched? Does that all make sense? Great, seeing some nods. Another example, I don't actually know of Zach. I think it's still around. Actually, no, I know it's around because I feel like I've seen boxes show up in the mailroom. But they created a basic e-commerce website. They did not purchase any shoe inventory themselves. Rather, they partnered with local stores and then they bought the shoes from the stores and shipped them. And so that really achieved kind of what they were seeking to do. And again, still around and still successful. And just thinking about, the testing will be, will people buy these shoes online? Yes. Thank you, Tiana. Glad to hear that they are still around and still successful. I lost my cursor again. There we go. What if I have no revenue, or what if, how do I show traction in that case? It is true that investors do want to see traction and knowing that it has various levels. So real customers are greater than sales, and that is kind of leading to your revenue. Pre-sales, signups, beta testers, pre-sales and deposits, all those things are really good to show traction, right? I've got this idea, I've got folks, this is again, kind of the whole idea of Kickstarter, right? I haven't launched this product yet, but, or I haven't fully designed this board game, but you can see that I'm really passionate about it. And you can see that it's a really cool idea. And so pre-order it, and that will help me be able to fully design it. If you've got folks that are on mailing lists that have said, yes, I want to be up to date with the product that you are launching. So please keep me updated, right? Those sorts of numbers are really helpful for people to see. Website visits, click-throughs, all those sorts of things that you can gather through Google Analytics, really important. Personal interviews, right? If you've got some of that, so these first few bullet points are more quantitative data. These personal interviews might be more qualitative data. So capturing that is really helpful. And then surveys as well. We'll come to it in a slide in just a little bit here, but just saying, I've got a social media presence isn't really helpful. Talk about those social media analytics and don't just solely rely on that, right? There are tons of other ways to kind of show this traction that you've got with your product or idea. Anyone heard of Pulmaware? Seeing some head shaking. Check the chat. Yes, all of this can be included in the pitch deck. Great question. So you can see that this is kind of their product to track, trend, and manage all of the symptoms that folks have in terms of heart rate issues, respiratory rates, barometer, activity stuff. So that it's kind of a little bit like a Fitbit, and then it allows them to kind of track these trends in addition to, in conjunction with kind of lung function. That's kind of their pitch. I'm sorry, I keep losing my cursor. But this is a great example of a product description for them to just kind of very quickly show what their product is and what it's about, right? I saw a lot of head shaking that people weren't really familiar with this. Right here are 3 kind of quick bullet points and easy things to remember: track, trend, and manage. That gives you a basic idea of kind of what Pulmaware is. Another example of a product description is Simply Good Jars, right? And this is done through just kind of this one graphic or picture. And this is actually started by a Temple alum. So you can see you or right away get a concept of, okay, it looks like it's kind of a self-contained refrigerator or, cabinet for me to grab my things out of. I see the marketing of it right there. I see that someone can very easily open it. I get a sense of what size it is. I see some partners in terms of paying and Venmo, PayPal, all the major credit card companies. And then you just get a really quick snapshot of, in these 2 steps, of how to consume or take in the product. And so this is another kind of example of a product description that we can point to that says, if I were starting Simply Good Jars and to go to an investor, this is a great way to maybe open up my presentation so that you can see kind of what it is that we do. These next 3 slides are all from a company that has been in the news recently. We'll talk a little bit about it as we get towards the end, but I'm just going to kind of slowly scroll through these and let you read them. And then after the 3rd slide, I'll let folks kind of give some reactions. So here's the first slide, just kind of take that in. Moving to the second. Apologies for the blurriness of some of these, but if you can't read, so our mission, no more finger sticks, convenient, infection-free, non-invasive glucose measurement in real time throughout the day and night. This says gestational diabetes, performance athlete, and insulin dosing type 1. So this is attempt number 2. And then attempt number 3, again, sorry for the blurry text, but our mission, no more finger sticks. So what do people think? What are your reactions to these kind of 3 examples of the same product?
And again, this is like the first, like your first pitch, their first slide to investors.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I would go to the 3rd attempt because it wants you to talk more about what you got going on.
Yeah, exactly. Right, this one is, there's a lot of text on there, right? And it's bulleted out and not full sentences, which is great. I don't I'm not super well versed in kind of some of the technical jargon and sort of all this stuff, but even if I were, that would feel like a lot of text and a lot of things for me to try and decipher while still trying to listen to what the presenter had to say. This one gets a little bit better, right? Still a very busy slide. You see the big kind of strike through sign in the middle. Again, still a good amount of text, not really in bullet point form. So it's maybe, drawing your eyes to a bunch of different places on the screen, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But this one, like Marissa said, straight to the point, right? Mission, no more finger sticks. And you see, kind of the traditional finger stick that you have. Again, this is for the Elizabeth Holds Company, for folks that have been following that. So a bit of a cautionary tale there, but still kind of important to just kind of show they were able to raise a good amount of money initially, and showing a little bit of kind of their journey from that first attempt to the 3rd attempt. Any questions about any of that? And does that all make sense? Okay. What's that?
I just had a quick question. So,
yeah.
Obviously Theranos was creating a market, right? And go back to that first slide. It's like, the technology is relevant in the way that, that company, whatever, for the moment in time, they were successful to get capital, right? But like knowing full well that this is very new, very innovative thinking at the time, how can attempt 3 really address that without, I know it goes into like how you describe it, how you talk through it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there is like a level step down that is required because it is an innovative product.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that, again, if you were on the up and up and pitching this product, that you would want to get to maybe in that next slide, right? This is really talking about, kind of that overview, that maybe first or second slide after you've done your introduction of yourself, but really kind of sharing, some tips as to how to really kind of capture folks in with kind of describing what the product is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So I want to speak for a little bit on intellectual property, and I will share that I am not an expert in this at all, and so would be happy to point folks in the direction of, and maybe Emily, sorry, I'm giving this to you on the fly, but the Small Business Development Center. Emily can maybe throw a link in the chat for them, but they are a partner that we have at the Fox School of Business that is inward facing for students, faculty, staff, and alumni, but also outward facing for members of the community. But they can really help you kind of work through some of this intellectual property stuff. If you've got specific questions about like, how do I set that up? How do I make sure? How do I kind of set myself up for success in that way? In kind of, protecting my intellectual property. But in terms of the presentation, it is important to kind of share what intellectual property you do have. Do you have a proprietary license or proprietary ownership of the product that you are pitching? Do you have trade secrets or copyrights or trademarks or anything like that? All that is really helpful for folks to know. And this second main bullet point is really important. Intellectual property, what you do have, is definitely an additional security blanket for your investors. They want to know that, right, if I'm going to invest in you, you've got the intellectual property to back this up, and some shark, somebody out there is not just going to kind of swoop up and mimic your idea, and then my investment is now worthless because somebody else swiped it up. This does not apply to every presentation, and I will share that it is okay if you don't use this slide, but for those folks that do have questions about that or are thinking about kind of intellectual property as part of your presentation, these are things to think about, and these are some of the tips that we have shared in the past. All right, we're going to move right along. Your go-to-market strategy. Some of you have already talked about this a little bit, but how will you reach target customers and drive revenue? Kind of thinking about what are your marketing channels? How will you make money, right? What is your revenue model? This is something that investors are definitely going to want to know. You can see the bullet points there about all the kind of ways that folks can make money in this space. So it's really important to be able to share this as people are thinking about this go-to-market strategy. Any questions here about this? Run through that one kind of quickly. Okay, great. Let me just check the chat, and I'm sure it's just wonderful. Thank you, Emily, for posting that. Some factors to consider for an ideal go-to-market strategy. Again, this is kind of similar to what we talked about before. What is your target audience? What channels do you use? How are you packaging and pricing this? And then customer acquisition, how are you bringing more customers in, and what is your cost strategy? All these things, if you can kind of hit these 4 things, it's really helpful and kind of really nicely spells out all the things for your go-to-market strategy and framing that out for the investors. What are the key messages that your target market segments, right? Are there specific things about the population that you think is most applicable to your audience that you think is important for the investors to know? It is helpful to hear about the marketing and sales plan, and then also the partnerships or alliances that you are going to make or that are going to be necessary to secure before there's good viability or there's good kind of growth and movement in your product. And this is the point that I had mentioned earlier. I always like to say, do not just say that we will use social media to get the word out. Everybody can use social media. I could go on Instagram right now and create a profile for, Neil's water bottle company and just start posting stuff. That doesn't make me unique. That doesn't make me kind of stand out. Again, social media is an important tool, and I'm sure that, successful companies have used it in the past to kind of help them drive their businesses at this stage. But just saying that you're going to use social media to get the word out is not really kind of the key to success here. Kind of the last thing with go-to-market strategy. These are a couple of examples, and so you can see thinking about this this kind of made-up company that has a cross-section of lawyers and immigrants. Thinking about what sorts of events can be used in this service, what sorts of partnerships they need to form, and then what are kind of the direct connections between or that are made between these two populations. I'll just pause here and let folks look this in. Again, we'll share this presentation out if you want to go back and look at it more closely. Funding and uses. And I think I'm doing okay time-wise. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I think we're doing okay. So do just want to make sure to leave some time for questions at the end. You can see kind of the text on the slide here, but these funding and uses, showing past investment, current need, and primary use of funds. Those three things are really key to kind of letting investors know where you stand and kind of what your funds will be used for. All of these questions that are in kind of these sub-bullet points, you can see are things that you might want to address with your pitch and with your submission. If you don't need outside funding beyond, the Be Your Own Boss Bowl, use, whatever the grand prize total is this year. I don't believe it's going to be $60,000. That will be announced kind of as we get closer to it. But use that as your ask, right? If you are, ready to go to market and all you need is the BYOBB to get you over the hump, share that, right? Because that is a key point for investors to know. So here's an example of your funding and uses slide. So the ask for this company is $500,000. You can kind of see where that is being put towards on all of this stuff. And you can also see, right, they've got this 18-month kind of project timeline, and then the next raise that they're going to do is 5 to 7 million, so that the investors just kind of have a good sense of where the company is and where it's going. So this is kind of, again, another great way to show the funding and use for the slide that you're going to be using in your slide deck. A note about exit strategy: if your projections do not require additional investor funding, so beyond the BYOBB, you don't need information about exit strategy, right? Because we are not asking for our money back. We would love for you to be able to do that, right? As somebody that participates in our competition and hopefully has some good success. But if this is not something that is required from other investors, you do not need to include this. But if you do have an exit strategy, again, this is the time to reassure the investor that they're going to make money on your opportunity. And those are some of the questions to ask and things to consider as you are thinking about how you're going to populate this slide. Pausing for questions. Check the chats. Great. Okay. So again, here is an example of an exit strategy for a company. You can see that 75 million from shipping, 35 million from customers, and then 80 from fulfillment automation. And these are kind of the ways that these companies have acquired other companies to kind of meet those exit strategies via acquisition. So if your plan is to acquire smaller companies, share that with the investors. I think we have, nope, I thought we had another exit strategy slide, but I'm sure there are more examples in the resource folder. Here are the BYOBB pitch deck guidelines. Again, I'm not going to go through these step by step. Again, feel free to refer back to these as you are putting your submission together. But I'll just let you all peruse these right now, and I'll pause for just a second to see if anybody has any questions or reactions to any of these kind of 9 guidelines that we have up here.
I love that it says to never say that the estimate is conservative. So but also the other, don't go like free flying either, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Other reactions, thoughts to this? Something in the chat. Thank you, Emily. Again, shameless plug for our best practices when it comes to actually pitching. We're going to have that workshop happening in March, so feel free to sign up for that. All right. So we are coming towards the end here. So the next steps for you all after leaving this presentation is utilize, attend, do, validate, and get. So utilize our mentoring services. That can be Startup Tree, that can be outside mentors, that can be, again, thanks Emily for putting in the chat, the Temple SBDC. We also have a great partnership with the Blackstone Launchpad. They should be opening up a new, I think it's called the iNest on the Health Science campus for any of you located there or that frequent there. But they are also located in the Student Center, kind of right in the heart of campus, but they are a great partner as well. Utilize all of the mentoring resources that you have. I always like to say, right, as you are thinking about these ideas, and particularly when it comes to practicing your pitch, definitely share, this with folks that are in the industry so that they can give you, some tips and tips and tricks. And, you may have overlooked something that somebody only in that industry may know. But also, reach out to somebody that is so not in your industry, right? If you are doing something very technical that is, pharmaceutical based, reach out to somebody who is an English lit major and give your presentation to them, because they are going to come at it with a completely different set of eyes that are going to be able to share with you kind of some feedback that you may not consider. Again, shameless plug, attend our upcoming workshops. We put these together and have found them to be helpful in the past for folks as they were thinking about this. Definitely do your research, validate your key assumptions, and like I said, get feedback from as many different sources as possible. Tips for winning the BYOBB. This is what everybody is here to see, right? Number one, understand the requirements. So many times folks put together really good presentations and really good packets and all of that, but they leave something out that is a key part of the judge's rubric, or they, spend way too much time on one thing and kind of neglect the other things. So make sure you understand those requirements and are putting, the appropriate weight. And again, you can see what those are on the judge's rubrics to each of those different sections. Have a plan for completing your competition. I know it's crazy to say, but March, the end of March is going to get here sooner than you know. We are really only about 6 weeks away from the submission date. The thing that I like to say, and I shared this the last time, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So, I shouldn't, if I have a deadline coming up, I shouldn't wait until the last minute and try and do it all at once. Maybe it's just, I am going to sign up for the next presentation. And that is the task that I have for today. I am going to download the PowerPoint template and make sure that it is saved on my desktop. That is all you need to do for the day. Great. Build a team, attend the workshops, and as always, utilize our mentors. Those are tips that we have found to be really successful going forward. Thanks again, Emily, for posting the next workshops in the chat. And finally, do not forget to hit submit. You would be surprised at how many people, have everything drafted and they're giving it one last look over and just click save instead of submit. Make sure that you hit submit. You should get a confirmation page or a confirmation email that says, your submission has been reported, so that you are able to know that everything has gone through appropriately. Other resources, we talked about the Launchpad, the SBDC, the Temple Writing Lab. I will share, I'm having a meeting on Monday with folks from the Business Communication Center here at the Fox School of Business, just because we are open to folks from all 17 schools and colleges at Temple. I just want to make sure that they are comfortable with folks from, again, the College of Liberal Arts or, Tyler School of Art and Architecture using their services, the Fox School of Business, the Business Communication Center. So I should have that wrapped up by Friday, but we will put their link on our resources folder. If they do sign off on it, they just kind of want to get a better sense of what they're signing up for. But they are a great place for folks, if you are in the Fox School of Business, to go. Again, that's the Business Communication Center. I think that is it. This should be the QR code if folks are interested in in earning suitable credit for this event. So if you are a graduate student, that is Guild credit. If you are an undergraduate